Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. This will be the last talk from what someone referred to here as this New York interstate highway. So, hello and welcome. One question I saw in the comments was, what do monks think about jokes? Well, we don't think about jokes. It comes under sampapalapa, not necessarily useful talk, but sometimes monks even and lay people will use jokes when appropriate to, as we say, break the ice. Just relax whom you're talking to. And the Buddha has a list of questions in the suttas he'd ask of going through people's hierarchical needs, really, are you well, have you got shelter, sufficient food, how's your practice, and so on and so forth, just to, how was your journey here, just to settle people into the conversation and the talk. It's also our instinctual and habitual tendency to do so. So in this case, it isn't what we call sampapalapa, useless talk. But jokes, I think, in answer to that, what do monks think of jokes? Where appropriate and pertaining to a neutral situation, I think it's okay. But where, as often jokes are, at the expense of another being, another individual, maybe pointing out their faults or mockery, then this is not appropriate. So not the kind of jokes one will joke about another monk. In the Vinaya rules, there are rules pertaining to this. We're not allowed to mock other bhikkhus, other monks, or trick them. And specifically, we're not allowed to tickle, is one rule. It might be considered, great fun to go and tickle a monk to make him laugh, but it's a forbidden rule. So, at this New York interstate highway location, this little vihara, this room where I've been staying, once again, welcome. This will be my last talk from here. I have now found suitable accommodation. About 1 kilometre, maybe a bit more than half a mile in that direction, that is south, along the coast, off the highway, still within hearing of the railway line, but this is very unintrusive. It's once every hour or so a train rumbles by. And but that is not why I'm moving. Yesterday was the Uposita, the full moon of January, and I had hoped to be practicing Nisichik. This is sitting all night in meditation, which I was able to do partially most of the night last night here, but as I planned to go and spend that in the forested area at the secluded end of this part of the beach, I decided against it last night. It wasn't because of the weather, but it does mean that in order to have gone to that location, I would have to walk along this busy main road, past some busier locations, guest houses and such things, or village houses, in the early part of the evening. And if I was to have had to return for any reason to here in the night, similarly, I would have had to have walked back that way. And in our Vinaya rules, we are not to enter into the town or the village after noon. So after midday, monks alone, without a good reason, so need of some medical attention, or one maybe have run out of water or something like that. So something important. We have no reason or call to go after noon wandering into town for the sake of going to the shops or just out of interest. We can walk, of course, in the forest or in our secluded environment where we're staying. This is no problem. But there is no need. We have to seek permission from another bhikkhu. Now, living in solitude alone, I don't have another bhikkhu to seek permission from. Although I have the support of my Sangha in India, I wouldn't want to trouble them over such an issue every time I needed to pop into town. So I would ask the local lay people who support me here if I need something. We are allowed to have an appointed individual, it's again in the Vinaya, whom we can ask if we need something. So say I'd run out of toothpaste or something. This never happens, so as a bad example. There's a huge surplus of toothpaste, so please don't take that as a hint. I've got more toothpaste than I think I could use. But say that was the case, I could ask him to go and get that and come back, but I shouldn't go wandering into town. So I thought better of it, having reflected on the Patimokkha already during the day, that if I was to go and practice all night on the beach last night, then if it was necessary to have left the spot to return here, I would have had to have gone through, not a town, but similar, and certainly in the time of the Buddha, what would be considered a town environment at an inappropriate time. So where I'm moving to, this will not be an issue. I'm moving into the forested area that borders the beach at the furthest extreme of this, the extent of this village, this town, where there is no or not much tourist activity, maybe some odd walkers passing by on that part of the beach. There is little in the way of facilities. There are no facilities really, so it's not a popular place. From there I can still access the same route for my Pindapata each day, and the main reason I'm moving from here is not because of the external environment, sounds, or any of the just aforementioned reasons, but more specific Vinaya reason, that is, this is adjoined to a neighbouring property which was occupied by a Buddhist couple previously, a man and lady, and it was okay to live next door to them. They were very quiet, and there was nothing in the Vinaya rules particularly pointing to that being a problem. And subsequently it's become empty, they moved, and for reasons of Vinaya I did consider maybe I should try and take that property also, to secure it in terms of who might move in next door, because this does become or can become an issue. Now, for instance, say it became a place where, and I don't know what's happening next door, but they are carrying out a lot of building and maintenance and doing work on the property next door, and they have said, although I might have misunderstood, that it may be open to maybe tourists as a guest house they could use. It's a very small place, it's not very suitable for tourists, especially with the road, but if tourists were to use it, even one night or two nights, this would make this place inviable for me to stay in terms of Vinaya. Because I cannot live under the same roof as a lady. This is one of the Vinaya rules. This is not appropriate for a bhikkhu alone. I cannot be in the room with the lady, but it does extend under the same roof in the same building. There are not common areas, it's quite separate, but there would be occasions whereby it would be difficult for one to separate oneself from interaction with the neighbours. Now this was okay before, but say different tourists were coming and going from time to time, it may not be appropriate. And also, from the point of view of the location, the practice, people are coming to see me quite a lot here. They come to talk, they come to receive blessings, Panchasila, Tisarana Panchasila, which is taking refuge in triple gems, and the 5 precepts. They like to perform this Anumodana ceremony on death anniversaries of pouring water and some chanting. And here is not a good environment for that. They can, above the noise externally, they cannot really focus on what we're talking about. It's difficult for me to hear them and them hear me. You have a little microphone here, so you can hopefully hear me clearly enough. But in the room, especially in the day with the fan going, it's not good for that situation. So out of compassion, kindness to them, but also myself, we must look after ourselves. An opportunity has come up not far from here. People knew I was looking, and I was actively looking. I was walking for 2 days up and down the coast, not so much knocking on doors, but hovering around places, and at the appropriate time of day, late morning, getting into conversation with people. And they are asking, are you staying in a temple? I say, no, I'm just wandering. I have a little place, explaining. And, well, why don't you live in a temple? And this is a common question that is coming up quite a lot, probably as a result of what I might have said recently. Firstly, let me cover something. A lot of questions have come up about pain and chronic pain. And I will get round to replying to all of the comments and questions soon. But firstly, let me please apologise if I've given any impression that I am in any kind of pain. I do have some post-operative discomfort. Certainly, in that respect, there is a little dukkha, but I would not describe it as pain, and certainly not chronic pain. So I sympathise with any people trying to practice whom are experiencing any level of pain. Someone in a comment said that they're really struggling with their aversion to pain. And my reply is, well, please don't struggle to your aversion to pain. We all have aversion to pain. Pain is actually also an intoxicant. The Buddha says this in the sutras. Because you think when you're trying to maintain focus, attention, conscious awareness on your breath, your meditation object, if you're in pain, which I'm not, I'm experiencing some, let's say, extreme discomfort, because my body's been interfered with and things have been changed, and it will take probably a while to get healed correctly and for me to get used to it. And I walk a long way on Pindapat, so it's very noticeable, and I'm continuously bringing my attention inwardly towards the body. This is what we are trained to do. So maybe I focus a little more so than necessarily on a particular area, trying to really put it into the structure of what's going on here. But I'm not suffering badly in that respect. I'm not having to take any painkillers or anything like that. So please, I appreciate your concern, but save your sympathy for the people who really are suffering for some pain, as I do have sympathy and compassion for them. But the pain, the Buddha said, is an intoxicant. much like any other intoxicant, it affects the ability for the mind to concentrate, which is why pain can be considered an intoxicant. So on occasions, the best practice is to always take the best possible medical advice, as I have done. Seek medical attention wherever you are, at least to the extent of what's on offer there, the best you can get, and have treatment. And if the prescription is pain relief in some form of medication, which is usually not an intoxicant in its own right, they can become, I appreciate, addictive, they can have side effects, there is all of that. But usually most pain relief is fairly directed towards just that, relieving the pain. This is not prohibited in the rules and perfectly acceptable, because you're reducing the level of intoxication that the pain is causing. So please, that's one thing. The other thing is with regards to why somebody has in fact also Googled on Google Maps my location, which is there. I must try and work out that needs to be changed if I move, if it needs to be there at all. But they say there's about 5 other monasteries. There are, yes, there's many temples in Sri Lanka, all over Sri Lanka. And in this immediate location within walking distance, I think there probably are 5, 6. Certainly very closely, you can hear. Someone mentioned about background noise, what is it? I don't know. I think it's one of the nearest temples. You can hear they play live Buddhist TV. They have Buddhist TV channels constantly chanting, repeating Tisarana Panchasila all day long, and they play this live on big external speakers in such places. They say, why don't I go and live in one of these, stay in one of these for support? Well, firstly, because I am supported by my Sangha back in India, and certainly very well supported, as you'll see, when I go on Pindapat, and from all the offerings that come here on people's visits when bringing dana, by the local community, who actually appreciate being able to come and see a monk alone in a relatively peaceful, calm environment by comparison to what you're hearing in the background at local temples here, whom are of different traditions, there are many different sects which I don't even know much about here in this country, different sects of branches or schools of Theravada Buddhism here, varying in their treatment and their the way they act in accordance with the same Vinaya as us all, but they may be interpreted a little differently, maybe less literally than perhaps I do so in my own practice. For instance, what I was just talking about in wandering into town, you will see many monks, well, few at least, wandering around any time of day, roundabouts. It's not really something that would be considered an issue, but for me it is. So this is why I don't just go to the nearest temple. If it's to stay for one night when travelling, this is okay, 2 nights, 3 nights. And this is also the way it is worked, that we can go and stay anywhere for 3 nights, and then we need to seek permission from the abbot to stay longer and our reasons and so forth. So it hasn't become necessary to do so, and that is why I don't live in a Sangha. I have lived in a big Sangha, a small Sangha, medium, all kinds of different monastic environments, and at the moment, on the instructions of my Sangha or my teacher, I am practicing in solitude in this country here, where they know I'm well supported, but practicing alone to further my bhavana, my mental development, my practice, my meditation. So with their blessings and their support, at least their support in terms of I have access to them with questions on Vinaya matters and keep them informed as to my activities and my whereabouts and progress in my practice, but not on far from it a daily basis, but maybe once a month have a talk with my official teacher. My real teacher is the Buddha, and his lineage of disciples thereafter. And really in my tradition from Ajahn Mun, Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Sumedho, and his subsequent disciples, This is what I consider to be my teachers. Although I have only the Buddha, the Ajahn Mun, Ajahn Chah were dead before my time of even practice. Ajahn Sumedho I have briefly met, but we're not on a talking terms. But I consider him my teacher because I listen to all he has to say, and I'm guided by that. I've read all of his material, and I'm guided by that as his view and his understanding, his deep understanding of Vinaya, Pitaka and Sutta Pitaka is very much in accordance with, or resonates, don't like that term, but it resonates with me somehow, I don't know why, and it's what brought me into this practice and ultimately taking on this form. Under another Ajahn Chah disciple in Thailand, because although I have monasteries in England where I could have stayed, I couldn't have, by the time I eventually ordained, couldn't have ordained there because I was approaching the age of 50, and there is a cut-off limit of 50 years of age in most European Western countries for ordination. So this answers another question on why I didn't just ordain there. They're very reputable and good monasteries. Yes, they are. But also, they are not able to go on Pindapat every day. They might try once a week or occasionally, but it is never going to be like when you're in Thailand, Burma, or Myanmar, or Sri Lanka. Unless you have it set up, you've made arrangements for people to come and give you food, which is not how it should work, then you are going to be just staying in your community. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Buddha allows for us to stay in a monastery, a community like that. Or we can move into an empty building, or we can live in a cave, under a tree, or just simply outside. These are the options in the forest. We cannot stay in normal houses. Somebody found me a very nice house that I could have lived in. Not a house as we might describe it. I consider it as a house because it had more than one room. Now, more than one room I don't need. Maybe a bathroom as a second room is useful, a washroom internally. Where I'm going is just one room with, well, it's sort of a stable. You'll see it, I'll show you. It's very simple. It is also detached. And someone very kindly has said that it's within their boundaries of their property, and they are Buddhists, and they really appreciate the opportunity to have a monk living in their little bit of forest there, not too far from the beach. So, given that opportunity, my question would be, why would I want to go and live in a monastery whereby they're all sitting around in big chairs, thrones, if you like, at big tables for several meals in the morning, or a few meals, breakfast and late morning meals, and lots of loud chanting going on, and very devotional, wonderful practicing environment. This isn't really the nature of my practice as coming from a forest monk background. So I choose to be alone, or as I found another little vihara, not going to be any different really from what you see here, because I only go with my bowl, and I will try and take my Buddha Rupa. I think the candles have gone out now, so I've burnt down the last of my candles, I'm glad to say, because I think if today, if they've managed to get some ready for me, then I'll be able to move down there. So what was I saying? So yes, being this day after Uposatha and reflecting on the Vinaya, this is the reason I'm moving. It's not for any other reason, because I actually keep as close to the Vinaya as I possibly can. Now it's interesting, a layperson has asked me all kinds of questions on this, about Vinaya. And as lay people, you don't need to be concerning yourselves about that. There is a wonderful book called Rules of a Bhikkhu, something like that, which helps lay people relate to bhikkhus in terms of Vinaya, so it's applicable to lay people. So how you behave in front of monks. But deep, meaningful questions about each and every rule in the Vinaya, which has an origination story in the Vinaya. So the Patimokkha rules are a summary of the 227 rules coming from the Vinaya, which is how the rules came about. Is for monks and nuns. It's not really for lay people. It's not applicable, and it's not really that interesting, other than from a speculative point of view. I shouldn't use the word nosy, but it's just being a bit, I'm really interested into why can you not teach Dharma to someone holding a broom, for instance, is one of the rules. Well, probably because the origination story, and I can't remember now, someone was holding a broom or a stick. It can be seen as a weapon. They should be putting or they're working, so not concentrating. So they should put their broom down before listening to Dharma. And this is a rule, that someone must not be holding a broom if a bhikkhu is to be teaching the Dharma to them. But why do you need to know that? I can just say, please put the broom down, and then we talk about Dharma. That's sufficient. For instance, you board an aeroplane flying from Paris to New York. Now, it's very important, the pilot, perhaps maybe not so much these days, but it's always been, to my knowledge, important that the pilot is able to calculate fuel consumption at different altitudes, with different prevailing weather conditions that they may face, in order that, say, their route weather conditions change, or they have to change altitude, that they know that they have exactly the sufficient right amount, not too much fuel, not too little fuel. Too much would overladen and become false economy. Too little would mean you wouldn't get there. They have to perform all kinds of very complex calculations about fuel consumption in relation to prevailing conditions. This is the pilot's job, flying the aeroplane from Paris to New York. As a passenger, we board the plane knowing we are going to New York. Do we need to know this calculation, this very complex calculation? No. In fact, if we did, it would really spoil our flight. We'd be thinking, he's just dropped down 10,000 feet. This means, has he got enough fuel for the journey? He's going to be using more fuel. Maybe he should go back up again. It would ruin the journey. It's best we can sit there, meditate quietly along the journey without worrying about fuel consumption. So don't bother yourself too much with the intricacies of Vinaya rules. This is for monastics. It doesn't mean it's secret. The recitation is, because the recitation involves monks and nuns confessional. We confess to our superiors or other bhikkhus where we may have broken some of the minor rules or medium rules or major rules, in which case there's forfeiture or punishment of some kind, admonishment, even in some cases disrobing. This is done in the privacy of the sima, so no one under a fully ordained upasampada bhikkhu is allowed to hear that. Even samaneras, so novice monks, only bhikkhus. And this doesn't happen unless there are at least 5 bhikkhus present. So this is why I have my own simple ceremony of just declaring my purity or not, and establishing the intention to maintain those rules here and after until the next uposatha. So this is for monks and nuns, not for lay people. But the rules are not secret. You can look them up, they're on Wikipedia. They're there, the Patimokkha rules. The Vinaya itself is not that easily attainable. There may be commentaries and summaries of it as a book. For that reason, it's not really necessary to go into all of those intricacies. So for the person who's asked me that question, I think it's in an email. I'll probably refer you to this Dharma talk. There's my answer. But it is also useful for other people to know. So thank you for asking the question. The specific question you have asked on Vinaya, I'm not sure where you've heard that, and I won't go into it now. I'm not sure how it would be relevant, really, even to my practice, let alone anyone else's. Here has been a very nice place to practice, and I'm not going far away for me, and also introduce myself more fully into this community because it's more visible being on this road. I did have some little Buddhist flags outside so people could find me easily. It is on Google Maps, although not so many of the people use that come here, but some have come even from a long way away, from other countries. Some people came from America, and it's amazing. They found me here. They know Sri Lanka, they're Sri Lankan, but they found me here because the directions were there on Google Maps. So I will do the same at my new location. It is right near where I've shown you in the previous video. This is how I found it. It's in that area. It's not in one of those empty buildings. It is an empty building, but it's separate from that part. It's an empty building on its own, but it's a very peaceful, nice part of the coastline, forested area. So from now on, when I'm able to resume my morning pujas, and this is another reason for moving, they will be in the peace and quiet of that environment. Also, a question was asked about guided meditations and referring to me doing more of those. In fact, it was actually, I can't remember the last time I did a guided meditation. I don't do them. They're not something that I generally find, well, maybe I'm not very good at it, but because I like to practice myself, and if I'm trying to practice meditation and guide others, it's really not you need to be, that's where people need to be in an environment which is supportive of this kind of technology. Uploading an hour or 2 or 3 hours of guided meditation is, it's like recording music with no music, no sound, no instruments and everything for 3 hours, and printing, I don't know, wherever you have CDs or records or something like that. How do I describe this? It's blank air. I mean, I have to upload this to YouTube, and it might be useful if I had a peaceful, silent, nice environment where I'm moving to. It will be. That might be okay. I will maybe try to do it. But first I will begin with the morning pujas again when I'm able to resume that there, which will be in a more conducive environment for the chanting, and some meditation, short meditation in the morning. And when and if it becomes appropriate and possible to do so, maybe I will do guided meditation. But primarily, I don't have the equipment or the inclination. I mean, I don't have infinite amount of battery time on the phone for it to be able to record and then upload hours of footage, if that's what you'd call it, of me saying one little word every 10 minutes. It's not a viable option, and it would interfere with my own meditation time. It would take the time, an hour's guided meditation would take that long. This 40-minute talk, or however long it is, takes just 40 minutes, end. That's it, out of my day. I don't have another hour to give you, share with you. The puja is another hour. This is a couple of hours out of my day, which is actually more than most monks in every day, more or less, are able to give you. But I do that happily because I have no other duties. Another thing, living in a community, in a monastery, with the complexities of community life, whether it's monastic or other, you have responsibilities and duties that need to be shared. Who does the cooking or the preparation for cooking, because monks can't cook? Who does the cleaning? Who takes care of the, as far as bhikkhus, what we can do, the garden areas, the external areas, the laundry, all of these things have to be taken into account when you live in a community. How different is that from living in household life? in samsara, in the external world. I have really no duties. My 3 robes have to be cleaned every 15 days, or the outer robe every 15 days. And each day my sangati gets a rinse. And my bowl. That's as far as the washing up goes, the bowl and 1 cup. As far as the rest of the maintenance is concerned, you see it here. I light a candle at the end of the incense, sweep it out the door, duty's over. The rest of that time I can dedicate to you. If I'm living in a community, that isn't not possible. So I'm sharing this experience with you that way. Maybe I've drifted into some sampalapalapa here and there, so I should bring this talk to an end before I do so more, and hope you can join me for the next. Probably will be an opportunity to go through some of your comments and your questions, which have built up a little over the last day or so. Go through those from the new, more peaceful location, which also I won't have to go to. At the moment, although it's not far, it's only across there, but it is again crossing the road, so I have to choose the time of day very carefully. I won't be having to go to there to sit and talk to you. Where I will be staying, I will just be able to press the button on the phone and talk to you without any obstacles in the way. So I hope it will make for a much smoother interaction between myself and you, my very generous and kind supporters, but kalyanamita, more importantly, noble friends, beautiful friends, people who take some time out of their day to really just listen to what I have to say, but very, very importantly, comment, because I so much appreciate not only just your kind, very kind, supportive comments that I get so many of, but the questions that you ask, which give content here for me to talk about. I might not always have the correct answer, but I can certainly give you the benefit of my experience so far in relation to this monastic life in accordance with the Vinaya, and answer those questions to the best of my ability. Not to get into debate, as I've said before, but for you to have maybe a different point of view to combine with your own thoughts. And this is very useful for me. I hope it's useful to you, and if so, you can use it. And anything that I say that isn't, you are, of course, able to just hopefully let go of, not let it bother you, and still return to hear some more on another occasion. And please share with others. I think now, coming up to the end of this month, will be nearly 18 months that I've been contributing to this channel, your channel. It's not mine. I don't own YouTube. I just contribute this, what I say, to this form, this medium, this platform. So why it's your channel is because you put most of the content on it by your comments and your questions and your emails that are addressed to me, and I hopefully can respond to sufficiently. That is what makes this channel. And it's grown to, quite a lot of subscribers. There have been lots of views. I mean, I don't measure it in that respect. I do look at, the only measurement I look at is what they call the hours that, or how long really people watch it. If people just click on something, watch it for 10 or 20 seconds and then go to something else, that doesn't really count in my reckoning, unless it's something of that nature, it's music or it's very fast action stuff. But 10 seconds of this video, for instance, 20 seconds, half a minute of this video, doesn't really count. You've got to sort of listen to the whole thing. So for those of you that do, I do appreciate that. and because of the number of hours you can see that things are watched, I can see that many people do. So that's what makes it worth my while talking like this, knowing that there are people who do find it, to some extent at least, useful. So that I appreciate and have immense gratitude for. Anumodana. And I will say thank you for that. So be happy and stay well until next time, when you can hopefully join me from the new location. Sukhi Hotu.